Hello, my name is Ya Cao. Today I want to discuss with you something we all desperately want: wisdom. In 1 King of the Bible, chapter 4, verse 29 to 30, it says, God gave King Solomon wisdom, and he was the wisest person. We can use our natural inheritance and working diligently to make us smart. But smartness and wisdom are two different things. Some people can be very smart, yet they often do dumb things because they lack wisdom. Today, we will see many real examples in history to show you that God's wisdom is revealed in the Bible. Psalm 19 describes the benefits of the Bible, which I will not read out in detail. It says the Bible can refresh your soul, make people wise, give joy to the heart, and give light to the eyes. What do they mean? Wisdom. When you look at all areas of the world's civilization, they are all heavily influenced by the Bible. I have had the privilege of visiting many famous museums in Europe. The most amazing one is the British Museum. It not only has the most collections, and it also is free to visit. In it, you can find the treasures of human inheritance. But what I didn't quite understand is that they also showcase artifacts made of wood and grass by the backward ethnic groups of Oceania. For most people, we look down upon those cheap kinds of stuff, and we are born to be discriminatory. In 2006, there was a British movie named Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace is one of the famous Christian hymns. It was a biographical drama about the campaign against the slave trade in British Empire, led by William Wilberforce, who was responsible for steering anti-slave trade legislation through the British Parliament. William Wilberforce was influenced by John Newton, the author of Amazing Grace, who was once the captain of a slave trading ship, then became a pastor. One time, Wilberforce stood on a slave trading ship and said these great words, that all men are created equal. Because the Bible has this teaching, the foreigners residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself. This is in Leviticus. This is such a high standard. The British people have this mindset. Therefore, they know all people are all created in the image of God. Consequently, they can show those artifacts of the Oceania people. The British Empire had colonized many places, and yet they treated the colonies with respect, so that they did not leave much hatred when they left. When Queen Elizabeth I was in reign, the Spanish Empire was much stronger than the British Empire. So they constructed the Spanish Armada with over 100 wooden warships attempt to invade England. When that happened, Queen Elizabeth went to encourage the officers and the soldiers. She didn't know what would happen. But after a few days, the Spanish Armada was almost completely wiped out. The Spanish had made a colossal mistake. When the wind turned, the commander of the fleet ordered all ships to be anchored to maintain the battle formation. Therefore, the British sent 5 fire ships to cause most of the Spanish fleet to burn and sink. Since then, Spain had fallen, and the British Empire, headed by Elizabeth, replaced Spain, laid the foundation for the empire without the sunset later. Both the British and Spain believed in God and Jesus Christ. The difference was that Spain was Catholic and the British was Protestant. Even today, most Catholic churches don't encourage their believers to read the Bible, but the Protestant does. Who was the father of Elizabeth? Henry VIII. Henry VIII was a ruthless king. He had 6 wives, and 2 were beheaded. He wanted to divorce, but the Roman Catholic Church didn't allow. So he left Catholicism to form the Anglican Church. Catholic used Latin to conduct the masses. That he couldn't use that. Therefore, he ordered to translate the Latin Bible into English. By the time the successor of Elizabeth became king, the famous King James Bible was completed, which was the third version since Henry VIII ordered the translation. It has been more than 400 years now. The Bible has influenced the English-speaking nations and regions enormously. This is a picture depicting the French Revolution. It happened at the time of the First Industrial Revolution. France is also a Catholic country. The Industrial Revolution created a great disparity between the rich and the poor, coupled with the corruption of aristocrats that made the poor unable to survive. During the revolution, many tragedies had occurred, and many innocent people lost their lives. But on the other hand, Britain had no revolution. They used the peaceful means to establish the constitution of the monarch. Because the servants of God, such as John Wesley, had led the Christian to have a great revival. During the revival, God's servants taught the rich that they had an obligation to care for the poor. Therefore, the poor was fine and needed no bloody revolution. James Watt invented the steam engine, which caused the first industrial revolution. You then must ask, why didn't the French or German invented the steam engine but the Brits? One of the tourist attractions in London is the Tower of London. In it, there is a showroom showcasing all the crowns of the monarchs in Britain. You can see how the crowns have evolved from the very simple crown of the King Arthur to the recent that they have grown to be more and more luxurious and glamorous. During the current Queen's Diamond Jubilee, I had the opportunity to see an exhibit of the diamond crowns of Queen Elizabeth II in Buckingham Palace. When I got in, there was a banner written, "The diamond crowns represent the rich and the power of the British Empire." Therefore, you can see Britain has been very powerful after King James Bible was published. Later on, the Anglican Church persecuted the Bible-believing and the Bible-following Puritans. The Puritan with Mayflower ship as a symbol migrated to America in great numbers. During the independence of the United States, those scholars and the peasants from the 13 colonies, those who lack military trainings and war experience, could defeat the well-trained army of the British Empire. Just like Spain used to be stronger than Britain, and yet Britain won the war. It is written in Exodus 23 verse 22 that if you listen carefully to what he says and do all that I say, I will be an enemy to your enemies and it will oppose those who oppose you. Bible teaches us that if we read the Bible and follow its teaching, God will be on your side, no matter how strong your enemies will be. The United States is recognized as the strongest nation in the world, and it is the only nation when the president takes the oath of office, he put his left hand on the Bible. This is southern border of the United States. The border separates two different regions. Up north, it was influenced by Britain, and down south, Spain influenced it. Up north, if California were a country, it would be the 8th richest in the world. There are so many successful high-tech companies there. But when you get to the south, they are so poor. And many want to climb the border fence to pursue a better life in the United States. If you drive on the border highway, you will see such an ironic sign telling you to be careful not to run over the illegal immigrants who might run across the road with their whole families. When I studied computer science 45 years ago, we learned that there was a computer that was as big as a gym called ENIAC. It contained 19,000 vacuum tubes. Every time the machine went down, they had to find out which vacuum tube was burned. Today, your cell phone is more powerful than that. The computer is the source of the second industrial revolution. Why wasn't the computer invented by Russian or the Chinese instead of American? I live close to Seattle, which is a beautiful city with 2 big lakes. On one of the lakes, there are 2 bridges. What makes the bridges different is that they are floating bridges. Floating bridges are the most economical because there is no need to lay the foundation. All it takes is to tie the bridge with cables to the bottom of the lake. There is one requirement to make the floating bridges work, which is the lake water level cannot vary too much. In our lakes, the water level is always the same, whether it is in the raining or the dry season. Why is that? Over there, the lakes are all connected with canals, and the estuary of the canals is the famous Bala Locks. It is a dam that separates the lakes and the sea. There is a difference between the sea level and the lake level. When you go in or out to the sea, you need to go through the Suez Canal type project. This fantastic project was completed back in 1911, when many places in the world, such as China, were very backward without much scientific knowledge. Just this project has contributed to the Seattle economy tremendously, in real estate in particular. For instance, this is the mansion of Bill Gates by the lake, which is the mansion among the mansions. Just the underground parking lot has 50 parking spaces. Later, when I went to UK, I found that Washingtonians learned from the canal systems of the United Kingdom. It was to carry them forward in a more significant way. In the UK, the canals can climb hills, and each section of the canals is always full of water all year round. The canal can go through tunnels. To make the goods go through, 100 years ago, they built land bridges for that. All these are the result of the wisdom they possessed. Unfortunately, any nation will deteriorate because of so many national debts. The credit rating of America has been downgraded. The UK also has had many riots. The European Union has many problems. The most serious is Spain and Greece have gone bankrupt, which led to the devaluation of the euro. Why? The Bible says very clearly, if you fully obey the Lord your God and carefully follow all his commands I give you today, you will lend to many nations but will borrow from none. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1 and verse 12. These countries were originally the largest creditor countries, but now they owe a lot of debts because they have failed to follow God's commands. For instance, in the United States, they kicked out the school prayers from the public schools in 1962. In many states, gay marriage is now legal, which go against the Bible's teaching. Also, many places selling and consuming marijuana are widespread, which also causes many problems. Detroit is the center of automotive industry in the United States, now bankrupted. It had 1.8 million residences before, but currently it has only 800,000. Therefore, it can no longer support many of the buildings. The sites of the third world nations can be found in Detroit. For example, a church building has turned into a ruin. 45 years ago, I came to the United States. My relative drove me on the California highways. I was so shocked by the advances and thought it was almost heaven on earth to me. Yet, for just 40 years, things have changed that you can see beggars and homeless people all over the places. California is so dry now with many forest fires so often. Is it a coincidence? The Bible seems to predict that. The Bible says in Deuteronomy, however, if you do not obey the Lord your God and do not carefully follow all his commands and decrees I am giving you today, all these curses will come on you and overtake you. The Lord will turn the rain of your country into dust and powder. It will come down from the skies until you are destroyed. We can look back in history and see what is happening now. Isn't it true that when we read the Bible and follow the teaching, we seem to prosper? The Bible says, "Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path." We make decisions every day. The Bible is like a light to guide us so that when we make fewer mistakes with the guidance that will make us look wiser. The Bible also says the unfolding of your words gives light. It gives understanding to the simple. Psalm 119, verse 130. If you read the Bible, even you are not so smart, it will make you wise. Jews only account for 0.2% of the world's population, but their Nobel Prize winners is 22%. It's not at all proportional. Why? Because God gave them the Bible. The Bible says, "See, I have taught you decrees and laws as the Lord my God commanded me, so that you may follow them in the land you are enter to take possessions of it. Observe them carefully, for this will show your wisdom and understanding to the nations. He who will hear about all these decrees and say, 'Surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people.'" This is in Deuteronomy 4, 5-6. The Bible will make us wise. Paul once said to Timothy, "And how from the infancy you have known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith in Jesus Christ." In 2 Timothy 3:15. Bible will make us wise, even to receive God's salvation, which is the utmost wisdom. We will talk about that in a future video. Bible also says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding in Proverbs 9:10. Do you want to be wise? Humble yourself before God and read and study His Word, the Bible. Since God created us and He understands what we need, therefore He gave us a handbook for our life, the Bible. It is the standard of our way of living. If we study it and do so accordingly, we will be blessed. If you are not a believer, are you willing to explore the Bibles? If you are a believer already, would you start studying the Bible? Thank you for watching. May God richly bless you.